The Insta360 One X2 has been out for a few months now, and I still think it's one of the best, if not the best, prosumer 360 camera. Don't get me wrong, there's other 360 cameras that do certain things better, but I do think as a general all-round package, the Insta360 One X2 is the best one. But the question is, if you've already got the Insta360 One X, do you need to upgrade? And if you're looking to purchase now, which one should you buy? Let's dive in and find out. The original Insta360 One X is a slim, lightweight pocket camera, and I really like the design. It's quite low profile. The One X2, however, is about 1.5 times the thickness of it. It just feels a bit more durable. It seems to have been designed around its waterproofing, and it feels a bit more like an action cam than the original One X. It makes the original One X feel a bit like a toy. It really feels like Insta360 have identified that people are using these 360 cameras for action and reframing the content afterwards, and what they've done is just put it into a little action camera body, making it waterproof and more durable. Just things like the ports and the SD card slot being covered up just means less room for damage on the Insta360 One X2. So the One X I did get to try out was a second hand, and the battery was absolutely infuriating. I normally get about half an hour to an hour of screen on time without actually recording anything, and every time I charged it to 100%, as soon as I started using it, it'd go down to about 80 to 85%. The One X2 is about 1.5 times the battery capacity, and generally it is much better. However, I did find myself charging up quite a bit during my tests, so there is that to bear in mind. You might want to buy a couple of different batteries for this. But the Insta360 One X2 does last a bit longer, and that is definitely something to bear in mind. The One X battery it didn't last long enough in my opinion. The good news is you can charge both of these cameras using a power bank, but obviously you can't take any photos or videos using the power bank because you introduce wires and the power bank into the shot. The other huge improvement is that screen. The One X has a really basic screen for switching between menus and changing settings, and credit where credit is due, it works. But you almost always need to connect it to a phone, so are you really getting an easy to use portable device? The One X2 has this clear circular screen that you can use to change settings, preview your image, look back at the videos and photos you've taken, and pretty much do anything you'll need without connecting up to your phone. It's a bit fiddly and oversensitive at times, but it's worlds better in my opinion. The only thing it could have done with is some actual buttons for when you're wearing gloves and can't touch the screen. When the One X2 first came out, it was quite underwhelming in terms of new features. But at this point, I don't really think that many new features need to be added. Let's just go through some of the differences now. Both cameras offer the same resolutions and frame rates across the board, but actually the One X2 does offer a H.265 option, which allows for better compression, so smaller file sizes, but can be a bit more difficult to edit sometimes. They've now made it possible to use a single camera lens, so if you wanted to go into action camera mode, you can just turn it to the side, use a single camera lens, and you get that great stabilization with just one lens. But don't use this. It's really bad quality, and you're much better off just filming in 360 and cropping in yourself afterwards. I don't know how they've made it to be this bad quality, but if you've got any kind of phone that films, you're probably better off using that than using the single lens on this. I'm not sure if they can fix it with a firmware update, but I'll show some stuff on the screen, and it's not pretty. You've now got time shift, which is basically video mode with speed ramps, but it can look pretty good once you master it. There's also a vivid mode in video, and this basically just adds a little bit more pop and some vibrancy to your video to make it more social media ready straight from camera. They've added a night shot mode for better low light photos, and they've added pure view, which is on by default in photo mode, and just adds some vibrancy, some pop, and a little bit of the HDR effect to your photos, again to make them social media ready. But if you're serious about your 360 photos, then you'll probably shoot on RAW, more on that later, or the usual profile and grade it a little bit afterwards. So on to quality then, and I'm not going to do much pixel peeping unfortunately, there's plenty of videos that you can look at for that. But you'd be forgiven for thinking that the One X is better value for money, as both of these are actually using the same cameras. So on paper, you're not actually getting any better quality by buying the One X2. However, in my tests, I did find that the One X2 shots were slightly better in terms of the colors. They seemed slightly sharper at times, but also the dynamic range was definitely noticeably better. I did do some side-by-side tests in different environments to test this, and I do think the dynamic range was better on the One X2, so that is something to bear in mind. The microphone is also something that's different between the One X and the One X2. With this, the One X only having two microphones, one on the front and one on the back. This is an audio test of the original Insta360 One X with 2 microphones, and it's just a test if it's capturing my voice well, and to test the difference between this and the Insta360 One X2 with the 4 microphones. This is a test of the microphone quality on the Insta360 One X2. Do those 4 microphones make a difference to the 2 microphones on the original One X? Let's find out. So the conclusion is always a difficult one to write, just because everyone's in a different situation, but ultimately the differences come down to this. Better build quality, albeit a slightly bigger size. This means it's better for action as well. Better battery life, a few extra features that you may or may not use. Much better usability because of that circular screen on the front, and some improvements in quality and dynamic range. Those seagulls are so loud. So look, the price difference in the UK between the One X and the One X2 is about 60 quid brand new. And I'd fully recommend spending that extra 60 quid to get the One X2. You get more features, you get slightly better dynamic range, it's more durable, so it probably lasts longer, and it's probably more likely to be supported by Insta360. So it's well worth paying a little bit extra if you're buying it brand new. But if you're buying it secondhand, it's obviously a different story. You want to figure out what you're using it for. If it's your first 360 camera and you're not sure if you're going to be using it that much, or you're an enthusiast, then by all means just get the Insta360 One X and get a couple of spare batteries, see if you use it, and then if you end up using it quite a lot, then buy the One X2 or whatever's out at the time. If you're into virtual tours, you're just starting up, then the One X is more than enough. Just get a couple of extra batteries and you'll be flying. But if you're making money from your virtual tours, then maybe go for the One X2. Better battery life, a better dynamic range, great things for virtual tour making. If you're looking at upgrading from the One X to the One X2, think about how much you use the camera. Would you use it more if it had this screen on it where you didn't have to connect it to your phone? Would you use it more in action environments? If so, the One X2 upgrade is a no-brainer because it would just last so much longer. And are you a 360 enthusiast who takes lots of photos and videos? If so, obviously the One X2 is going to be supported for longer, and so you won't have to buy another one for a while. Anyway, you kind of get the gist. Personally, in my situation, I'd always go for the One X2 because I'm making money from my 360 content, so I know I'll be paying it back, and I know that it will be supported for a long time in terms of the firmware and software. Anyway, hopefully it's helped make a decision on what's right for you. I don't like doing too many sort of visual comparisons, pixel peeping and the quality and stuff like that. I just want to go through what I think and the experience that I've had with both cameras. On paper, it's not a huge difference between the 2 cameras, but I do think they have their own markets, which is why it makes sense that they're selling both of them on the Insta360 site still. So if this did help you, then hit the thumbs up down below. If you want to see more videos like this on the Insta360, DJI Pocket, and just filmmaking in general, then do subscribe. And if you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.